Let's start.
Excellent. Okay, all right. So we're starting to stream. Welcome, everybody, to the first seminar for this semester in January 2016. We're delighted that you're here. I'm Dave Novak, Chair of the Chemistry Department. It's my pleasure, absolutely, to introduce Jenelle Bell from California. She is a high school teacher there of some renown and expertise and enthusiasm, and a kindred spirit, because I taught high school chemistry for 8 years, and it was a delightful and challenging time for me. And I know that should you decide to go that direction, you'll have a great time as well. We're delighted that she's here. She's earned a couple of master's degrees in teaching, and has also won some awards with the excellence with which she teaches and the passion with which she is involved in her students' lives. And we're grateful that she's here. And I will let her introduce her program, her presentation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I do want to say that it's a real thrill for me to kick off your new semester and to be a part of the seminar series. When I looked at the other speakers you've had, I feel extremely honored to be in this group. So I really want you all to know that. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my story. So my title today, I'm teaching high school chemistry. I'm going to talk about one teacher's journey through generations X, Y, and Z. And I am sure that the reason why Dr. Murray emailed me and asked if I would be interested is because in 2015, I had the great honor of being the recipient of the James Bryant Conan Award in high school chemistry teaching. This is an award that is bestowed on behalf of the American Chemical Society. It's sponsored by Thermo Fisher, but the purpose of it is not just to recognize an outstanding high school chemistry teacher, because as you can imagine, thinking about all the teachers you've had, there's no one person who can stand up and say, hey, it should always be done the way I do it. There are many ways of teaching and many ways of learning, but I have the honor to participate in some events that will also hopefully encourage and stimulate outstanding teachers of high school chemistry. And perhaps in the audience today, there is one of those outstanding high school chemistry teachers. And I hope that you'll give this profession some thought as I talk to you about my journey, because I certainly have found it to be fascinating and stimulating. So here we go. My first year of teaching, this is me as a first year teacher. I was 24 years old when I had my first position at a very small high school in Northern California, only 400 students in this high school. And at this time, I had finished my chemistry degree at the California State University in Chico. I had finished my master's in chemistry at the University of California, Santa Cruz. And when I went into high school teaching, I will tell you, until I was in my master's program and I realized that I really loved working in the lab, I had never imagined that I would end up at a high school level. But I loved working in the laboratory with other students. So it was the teaching of the labs that really got me interested in the profession. So I decided to give it a try. My first position, I was teaching chemistry, physics, and actually mostly Algebra 1 because the school was so small. So I was the only physical science teacher at the school. I was very fortunate that my starting generation of students was Gen X. And this group of students is known as the latchkey kids, so where that phrase came from. And as I was looking for information about Gen X, one of the most interesting quotes I found was this one about how well educated this group of students became, 29% obtaining a bachelor's degree, and how much higher it had been than previous generations. So one of the things when I look back at the start of my career, I was really fortunate to work with students who were growing up in an environment where education was obviously really valued and really well supported, to think of so many of them going on to college. When I was this new teacher, I have to say that, and especially being alone, the only chemistry teacher in the school, I really relied heavily on my master's experience, the research experience that I was coming from into the teaching. I did go through a teacher training program. I was required to do a year of teacher training, and I did that at CSU Chico. And then I had this position in teaching. But I found that I was looking back at what was it about chemistry that excited me, that I wanted to relay to my students? What's kind of that hook for this sometimes difficult subject? And I really found experimentation and laboratory work is where I always kept coming back. So this is a picture from the first yearbook that I was in. And this picture just really thrilled me, because here's one of my students, and she's in her goggles and her gloves, and she has her separatory funnel. She's working on an independent project toward the end of the year. And I just was so excited to think that the student body would value that laboratory experience that I obviously brought to that small high school as well. I only stayed at Corning High School for 2 years. I had an opportunity at the end of that time to move to Chico High School, which is a much larger school with other chemistry teachers, and I decided to make that professional move. You'll notice that on my new slide, though, it says year 6. So the reason why I want to make this jump, when I think back to what was happening to me professionally, it really was year 6, or my 4th year of teaching at Chico High, where I made a real, I think, professional jump and a big commitment to being a high school teacher. At that time, I was doing college prep chemistry, introductory chemistry, and physical science. And what really happened, I think, is I began to get comfortable with working with high school students. And I also consciously made the decision to stay with that level of student. I had an opportunity to make a move to a community college, and I chose not to. I really felt that the creativity, the energy, and the excitement, and also the intellect that high school students had to offer me in our interaction was something that I wanted to stay with. And I have never regretted it. At that time, I was working with a new generation. This is Gen Y when I made the move to Chico, and a very different description compared to my starting students. These students, the millenniums, and I'm sure you've heard lots of different descriptors of them. This is only a few, but they are more sophisticated. Technology makes a big jump into schools and into classrooms. It's much more diverse population. And one of the other things I found very interesting in this description of Gen Y was the fact that 1 in 9 has some kind of credit card. So these students, by and large, have some connection to money, which gives them power and more control over their lives. So different population that I'm now working with. This challenging population, I think, was part of the inspiration to build my career and to become a better teacher. The analogy that I would use along my journey is, I would say that about year 5, year 6, my teaching looked a little bit like this room. It was functional, and it had kind of its own funky little style. But I had taken a lot of pieces from my own experience, pieces I'd learned from other people, and tried to kind of just put them together to build this room. Now, this room is nice, but I began to see and to realize that where I really wanted to go with my teaching was here. I really wanted to learn and improve, having a vision to create the experiences that I wanted my students to go through. I didn't want it to be hodgepodge. I wanted it to build into an elegant space for them and to give them an experience where everything was functioning, everything works together. So if that visual helps you see kind of where I'm going, I thought it worked for me. The other thing I want to point out to you is I think that teaching in general is a little different from many other professions in that it really did take me 5 years to say, I am a high school chemistry teacher, and to say it proudly and confidently and know that I'm going to continue with this. This is my career. I think in other professions, you can go into them more confident at the beginning. And teaching is one of those things where it really requires time to build up your confidence and what you're doing. I always tell my student teachers, give it 5 years. Wait 5 years before you decide, nope, this is not for me, because it does take time. So from here, as I'm building and trying to create that elegant space for my students, it turns out that for me anyway, there are these pillars of learning that really support my being able to do that. So as I go through these next few slides, when you see these blue bars, if you kind of keep that idea in mind, I think it will help you with where I'm going with this, that these are my pillars. So one very strong pillar that definitely has helped me improve my teaching is participation in workshops and conferences. I really became like the person who would apply for every workshop possible. I looked for long-term, high-quality things. So University of Puget Sound, 10 days, sponsored by the American Chemical Society. I spent several summers doing one-week workshops at UC Santa Cruz. They were sponsored by the Woodrow Wilson Foundation. They were very, very intense, 1 week with other high school chemistry teachers and taught and led by high school chemistry teachers from across the country, and also participation from professors at UC Santa Cruz. In Michigan, I was there for 2 weeks at Midland, Michigan, at the Dow Chemical site, their main headquarters, and fabulous experience. I mean, I can honestly talk to my students about what it's like to be at a large chemical facility that's literally like a small town. So workshops really enhanced what I had to offer students. Conferences, again, I was trying to go everywhere I could. I also applied for everything. My first major conference that I attended in New Orleans, the National Science Teachers Association, that actually was an all-expense paid trip that I won by writing an essay. There was an essay contest. And I want to take a second to tell you this story. When I entered my essay, I thought, oh my gosh, this is a national competition and I'm probably not going to win, but might as well. So when I got the notice that I won, I was thrilled, obviously. And at the meeting, I met 2 other teachers who had also been selected. When we met with the woman from NSTA who explained the award and how things would function at the meeting, we asked her, well, why did you pick 3 of us? Because they were originally only going to pick 2 people, and they chose 3. And the woman, honestly, she got a little flushed, and she said, well, only 3 people applied. And it blew me away. And I want to share that with all of you because as in your, as you go through opportunities in your future, always try it. Don't talk yourself out of it at the beginning because you never know what door is going to open or what opportunity. In addition to that first meeting, I have tried to attend as many ACS national meetings as possible. NARST, which is the National Association of Research and Science Teaching. There are 2 great conferences for education, in particular, the Biennial Conference on Chem Ed and the Chem Ed Conference that are really, really great for education and particularly high school. So try to go to everything I could. The other thing that eventually I realized is, you can be in these seats in the audience for so long and you gain a lot, but it became important for me to switch and get behind that microphone and stand up and share back the things that I had learned through my experiences. And so a new pillar that developed was the pillar of presentation. When you go to present, I think you end up really thinking about what you're doing. So I had some great opportunities to be the instrumental, that was the lead high school science teacher for a 2-week workshop at Chico State. I've presented at American Chemical Society and NSTA, the National Association of Research in Science Teaching. And then the other big thing that I want to emphasize, I have had the honor of being invited by our local university, CSU Chico, to present in their chemistry department. Every time I've participated in something, they've always come back and said, "Hey, Jenelle, how, coming to our department and telling us about your experience." I graduated from that department, and they have been so instrumental in my success, and they've been amazing at maintaining contact and support of what I do. When you take your classes, I am sure that is particularly probably in your 3rd and 4th year classes, giving presentations is one of those aspects to them. And you may always kind of dread that and think, wow, I'd rather write a paper because then only my professor's going to know my thoughts. But it's such an empowering experience to have to really delve into your own knowledge. And I think that by presenting, you also end up refining your practice because it allows you some interaction with other people with those thoughts. So tackle those moments. Even if you're shy and you think, I can't really do this very well, you'll be surprised at what you can do and the growth that it will give you. I think it's a real important pillar. Another one for me, organizations and people. I really want to encourage you to, no matter where you end up, but I really want to encourage you to join organizations. I've belonged to the American Chemical Society since I graduated from college. I belong to National Science Teachers Association, California Science Teachers Association. If you're out there thinking, oh, I might have this interest in working with high school kids, the American Association of Chemistry Teachers is a new organization sponsored by the ACS. Go to teachchemistry.org and check out their website, their resources. I think this is one of the greatest new things for middle school and high school teachers. Membership only costs $50, but you can access a lot of their information online without even belonging. But really, that's one, write it down. If you're thinking about teaching, check them out. I have maintained contact with Cal State Chico. It's been easy for me in my current position because they're only 4 blocks away. But I tell you that even when I was further away, and I think if I was out of state, I could get on the phone at any minute and call my professors from the past and say, hey, I'm working on kinetics and I have this question, or thermodynamics and I explained it this way, or I got asked a question and I'm kind of struggling with it. And those are things you go through when you first start. You need that support. So stay connected to those organizations. UC Santa Cruz, UC Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara comes in a little later in my education, but there are also places that I attended and have maintained contact with people. Another key pillar for me has been research, and I can't encourage you enough to do some research. I was in my 7th year of teaching, and I had an opportunity to spend a summer at UC Santa Cruz working for Dr. Phil Cruz. I did marine product isolation and some structure elucidation. In Dr. Cruz's lab, they gather marine sponges from Fiji, and then they look for compounds that show natural activity, antifungal, or different activities that they would screen them for or send them off for screening. So in the laboratory, what I had an opportunity to do was to isolate compounds and then help with determining structure. Actually had the opportunity to find a new compound that summer. I did not have the time to do the structure part, though. That was passed off to a postdoc. But what was so key there is it is so easy to forget about what it's like to do chemistry when you are in the classroom. I say, my phrase is, it's easy to become the chemistry dinosaur. And you have to watch for that. You have to really look for opportunities to engage within your discipline. So participating in research really helped. The other thing that I had an opportunity to do year 13 was to go on sabbatical leave. In the university environment, sabbatical leave is a norm. In my environment, it's very unusual. And I had to actually apply several years in a row to get the school board to fund my sabbatical leave. This was really so important for my professional growth because, you think about it now, I've been teaching 13 years. That's a good number of years. And I was looking for a boost to my teaching. And this really did it. I worked with Dr. Gregory Kelly, and we did qualitative studies of the classroom. So I learned for the first time how to really look at my classroom. I want to show you just a little bit from a presentation that I gave about how I did research using these qualitative methods. What it looks like, because I think this might also be new for most of you. We know what it's like to go into a chemistry lab, but now I have this classroom of students, and how can I study them? It's not obvious really how to get the best look at what's going on in your classroom. So what I did is I chose a poster session to examine using this particular qualitative methodology. At the end of the year, my students give a poster session. They have to pick out their own project that they want to work on. Typically what they do is they find an experiment somewhere that they think is interesting, and they'll repeat that experiment, and then they'll ask some new question about it to give it their own research flavor, for sure. So something that they won't know exactly what's going to happen for. And then they do a poster and they present their poster, and we try to make it kind of like a poster session at an ACS meeting. We'll bring in snacks and have lemonade, and people walk around and talk with each other while they have some munchies. And it's a really great experience. But, how do you really know like what's going on? Is there some learning going on during that time? Is it just fun? Well, what I did was I videotaped the poster session. And I brought to that research this new frame of looking at my classroom as a social setting. And really what I learned in Dr. Kelly's research group was, if you take a look at a classroom as being its own culture, it's a way of having that culture tell you what's going on, rather than you sort of superimposing and asking, am I seeing this? Am I seeing that? And it's really coming into it and saying, well, what am I seeing? What is really going on? And one of the big ways to know what the students are thinking is not only to videotape and look at what they're doing, but to listen to what they say. That this idea, if you look at that last bullet, that it is our language that makes our thoughts evident to other people. So I took this video and I transcribe all the audio, and then I do this construction of something called an event map, where I'm looking for this talk that I'm hearing from the students, and I'm just asking the questions: are there big events here that they're talking about, and then are there smaller events within that? So I'm not trying to put myself on what they're doing. I'm trying to ask them, through the tapes, what are you talking about? What are you doing here? What is your culture describing? And from this, you learn a tremendous amount. I did. It was very eye-opening. And I just want to share with you two quotes that I think are particularly cool and thought-provoking. The first one really blew me away. This idea, this student says, I didn't understand how, experiments relate to the actual chemistry. And that was really shocking to me. And of course, not pleasing as an instructor, because I thought, well, all of the laboratory work should surely clearly be linked to the concepts that we're studying at the time. But sorry about the bell in the background. But this really, really made me think again about what am I doing to help my students see the connection, like the real connection, the meat and potatoes of this is the experiment, and this is what you're learning from the experiment, to really think about that a little more, rather than just the experiment being something you slide through and do. You don't just do it, but you really engage in it. So that's really impacting and empowering to me as a teacher. And then the last one, I just thought this is really joyful, because I think we would all probably in the audience say that, yep, chemistry is a pretty interesting subject, and yes, it is a bit hard, and that's okay. We'll go with it. Even today, I still use this methodology. It's very time consuming and cumbersome for videotaping, so I don't do it like every day. But I'm this year looking particularly at some discourse that students have in relationship to laboratory structure. So I'm really trying to target how I can make my labs get students to focus on those concepts, kind of coming back to that first bullet and still hitting on that. The other pillar that I want to mention is the pillar of publications and writing. I have published several articles in the Journal of Chemical Education, and I just recently published in the online journal Solutions. And I find that writing is not an easy task, but again, it's almost like presentation. It's a very, very powerful task. And when I found this quote by Ann Cutler, I felt that when she made the statement that through writing is the best way to improve your own thinking about your practice, I really do think that that's true. And writing can create a lot of opportunities. The very first article I ever wrote, I was invited to write by Dr. Grover Willis, who was my PChem instructor. And I was teaching, and he called and said, hey, I have some ideas about things in high school and teaching. Would you be interested in coming on board? And that just opened up a world of other publications to me. But one that I want to briefly mention to you, we had 4 students who published with us. So if you look at the names of the students, Sky Cullen, Aaron Pardini, Yang Vang, Eric Wassinger, they were high school students who published this paper with us. And the research that we presented was not, earth-shattering, but I think that one of our statements here about the idea of reminding us all that the value of approaching teaching with that spirit of inquiry is so important for students. All of these students went on to be very successful in different science careers. One of them, Eric Wassinger, I will just mention, this is his world today. He is an inorganic chemist. He now teaches at Chico State, and just went on to have really a pretty amazing career, got his PhD at Caltech and postdoc at Stanford. So pretty high-powered place that he went on. And he always says that it was that laboratory work, that inquiry that he experienced in high school that really inspired him. So I've talked a lot about activities and this idea of pillars for me and my growth. Involvement with organizations and people, participation at workshops and conferences, both attending and presenting, this idea of the importance of getting up and sharing with people what you do, how you do it, participating in research, research within the discipline to keep you sharp and involved in thinking like a chemist as much as you can, as well as the excitement of educational research as you make the switch really from being a chemist to being an educator, being a teacher, being a mentor. The power of publications, of writing down things, how that really does cause you to refine what you're doing. I know that you right now might look at this and say, wow, okay, so this is a lot about this teacher. But what I want to really remind you of, or maybe just explicitly state, is all of these pillars power student achievement. So together, to me, this is like my rocket ship that powers what my students are able to do. And I know that's kind of a corny graphic, but it really is what I think is true, that without those things, I would not be able to talk with my students about experiences, what it's like to be in the lab all day long, what different types of chemistry even that are available and out there. And I think it comes through in my curriculum that I offer as well. So here I am, giving you a lot of background about activities of involvement that I think are crucial. But here I am today. I teach high school chemistry, and it's not a job for wimps, if I can put it that way. I mainly teach college prep level chemistry now. I have 150 students that are spread out in 4 periods, so pretty large classes. And I have one advanced placement chemistry class right now, which is relatively small with 20 students. I also serve as department chair. I've been department chair for almost 20 years now, which is not a position of power. It's really more a position of keeping people communicating with each other. I am, by virtue of my chemistry knowledge and being department chair, I think both of those together, I am the key person in maintaining our stockroom area, keeping it safe, ordering of materials, and that type of thing as well. I am still at Chico High School. Chico High School is a comprehensive public high school, grades 9 through 12, a fairly large student body. If you remember, my first high school only had 400, and Chico High now is about 1,800 students. So I'm no longer the only science teacher. That's the tardy bell, so that's why we have 2. I'm no longer the science teacher who's all alone. I teach in a department of 7 teachers total, and I have another person who teaches chemistry, so I have someone to talk with and bounce ideas off of, which is really, really great as well. I'm now teaching with a new generation of students. This generation, Gen Z, I just liked this descriptor that obviously we don't know everything about them because we can't go backwards and tell, oh, they were like this. But we do know a lot about the environment that they're growing up in. And it certainly is a complex and yet rich environment, but a lot of fast changes, a lot of information, and a lot of screen time that this generation will certainly have that will set them apart, I think, from others. But I also know that as a teacher, I get to participate in that environment that they are growing up in. And I get to create a little bit of that environment. And that's really the passion that I want to share with you. In this career, I really love it because I love chemistry. I went into it because I have that passion for the discipline. But I also really enjoy the fact that I get to be creative. I get to be in control of what I do. I get to try new things. Right now, one of the new things that some of you may have heard of if you are thinking about teaching, or if there's someone in the audience from the ed department, California is one of the states that has adopted the next generation science standards. So we have new science standards that are coming down. They've been adopted, but exactly how they're going to look in the classroom is obviously being developed. So it takes time to transition. Our past science standards, for example, in chemistry, they were very curriculum oriented. So it would say students need to be able to use the periodic table to determine trends in atomic radius. So, be very specific like that. The new science standards with these ideas of core ideas, practices, cross-cutting in this logo, core ideas are pretty much that curriculum of, what should a student know? I mean, at the end of the day, you should know some things. And the newest part of emphasis in the logo where it says practices, that is in reference to science and engineering practices. So not only do we want students today to learn material, learned facts or concepts, but we want them to really have an experience that will teach them how a scientist might actually work and how an engineer might actually work. So the engineering part is very, very new to be brought into the science classroom. I think science practices are things that really good science teachers have always done with lots of laboratory work, but really trying to make them more inquiry-based is something that's being emphasized. And then cross-cutting is trying to tie together core ideas and practices. What are some of the large themes? One that just comes to my mind is looking at scale that you work on, scale in chemistry versus chemical engineering. How you're going to go from very, very small to very, very big. So that's one of those cross-cutting concepts, scale. So this is the new view that I get to go into my future with. With that view and with my past, as I look at school and if you were to ask me, what do you do? Well, I'll tell you the thing I try not to do is to teach a class. I don't want to teach a chemistry class. I want to offer an experience. This is a view from my classroom. This girl is in her final exam, deep in thought, has her test tube in hand, so that's part of her experience. The view of my classroom that you're seeing there, that is a pretty typical lunchtime. Students are in, some of them working on chemistry, some of them just chit-chatting, some of them on the phone in the back you'll see, some of them eating. They could be working on another thing, but it's an environment, it's a place for them to come and be. And I think they feel pretty safe and comfortable there. In the experience that I offer, I do a lot of traditional lab work. Here my students are doing a distillation lab. They love doing things like that. Building that distillation setup is usually one of the funnest labs for them. We use a lot of different information resources. So I very much believe in not only online resources, but I still have them working in, yes, that is a CRC. So I'm assuming that all of you have seen that. It is a great big book of information, and having them go through and find things in that every once in a while I think is good for visualizing how information is organized. We use simple technology. So this is just a simple pH checker. And as time has gone by, we've incorporated more advanced technology. So these students are using some gas pressure sensors and temperature sensors for doing some gas law experiments. We also do some Spec 20 type of work. So that part of the class, I am sure, will grow as I go through this new generation of students. I also think it's really important to show high school students some current chemistry topics. And I read this book that's in the middle there, Read Aside by Kelly Gallagher. I highly recommend it for anyone who's teaching. It really made me rethink reading and how my students just really don't read anymore. And this idea of having what we call a reading flow where you get really lost in a text. And so because of the work of Gallagher and looking at my own students and seeing how little reading they were doing, I've fairly recently included this activity called a close read, where I take an article that I think will be interesting to my students, a current article, and they do a close read on it. The close read ends up looking like this, where they're reading through and they're annotating and they're writing notes, asking questions, defining terms, and then they have to do some summarizing statements. But it's real interesting, in college with books, you write in them all the time if you're going to keep them. And in high school, we were always telling kids, don't write in the book, don't write in the book. And yet that annotation is so powerful in terms of learning and remembering the material and really getting into the flow. So my students have loved these current event types of articles. We are very, I like to emphasize student presentations. I believe in giving presentations. This is a student giving a presentation for some summer work she did. This is that classroom. And again, this is lunchtime. This is totally voluntary to come in and hear what she has to say. And you'll see it's a pretty diverse group there. I'm real supporter of students doing summer research at a variety of different places. Chico State actually has 2 two high school students work with them doing real research in the summer, and they pay them a stipend, which is just a fabulous experience. So this is one student giving his seminar after his summer work. This is the second student who was selected to work there in the summer. The first student is now at Northwestern. This student is now at UC Berkeley, and they're both going into one in material sciences and one in chemistry. So the experience was really powerful for them. The California section of the ACS has been a real strong supporter of education in my area. And these are two students who did a poster on neon. Cal ACS sponsored a high school periodic table poster session at a regional ACS meeting in the Bay Area that we went to. So any experience that they can get, I think, is really valuable. This generation, they do have their eyes on you as a teacher, and they are looking with a different perspective. But even with that, they love crazy chemistry jokes. And so you want to keep those going. I strongly believe in these traditions. I believe that you also need to have your mantra, and mine is Chem is cool. So we do Chem is cool as much as we possibly can. We have AP Chem sweatshirts that we make every year, and AP Chem tie-dyed lab coats. Again, it's fun and it's tradition, and it gives you a connection. We celebrate Mole Day. It does take some time out of the curriculum, but it also creates a connection. And it's just a great, again, experience for them. Chico State often invites my students over, and I try to take advantage of any opportunity I can to take them so they can work in a university laboratory, see how different it looks from the high school. So this is, we're over for National Chemistry Week, and my students are working on making biodiesel. It was a really fun lab, and then they, of course, did ice cream with liquid nitrogen afterwards. So there's my journey. I hope I'm doing okay time-wise. And I know I've talked about me, but I hope that you will take a second to think about you. These are my pillars that I've used to fuel student success and student achievement. As I've talked about education, there are some things that I hope you might think about. And so if we do a little brainstorm of that, if you are a chemistry major or a chemistry student at Andrews University, I hope you'll have an opportunity to work in your stockroom. I worked in the stockroom as an undergrad, and then lo and behold, as a high school chemistry teacher, that has been very valuable experience to know how to make up solutions, how to set up a lab, how to maintain a stockroom. It's a great experience. Talk with your professors. Don't be that student who thinks, oh my gosh, my question's dumb and I don't have anything to say and I'm afraid of my professor. Talk. They are a huge resource and they want to talk to you. Get involved in a research project, either on campus or take a summer and go someplace else. As an undergrad, I worked at IBM a couple of summers. It was a super experience. Anything you can do will help you in whatever future you choose, but I think particularly in teaching. The other thing is learn to the best of your ability. It's the beginning of a semester, and I really can't encourage you enough to just take this semester and say, I am going to be the best chemistry student I can possibly be, because now is your only opportunity. Now is your opportunity to really nail that subject. Don't just be happy with, oh, I kind of sort of get it. Yeah, I worked through that homework problem. It was hard and I won't look at it again. Look at it again. Really go in depth in your understanding. You can do that. Take a rigorous academic load. If you're going to teach high school, you might say, oh, I'm only a high school teacher. No, don't say that, because the more you have, the more you know, the more you have to offer. And I've worked with students, people who are really more intelligent than I am. They're just a lot younger. And so it's exciting, to be able to push them and offer them as much as you can. Go to graduate school if it's in your mind. I am glad I got my master's in chemistry first. And then when I went back on that sabbatical leave, I did a master's in science education. But having that chem under my belt first was really crucial to my success. To professors in the crowd, what I would say is, think about your teaching relationship. Talk to your undergraduates. Ask them about their future. What are they headed off to? Be a forever resource. Tell them, call me, email me anytime. No question is too silly. You want to go over another concept or how to work a problem? I'm happy to do it. Be a forever resource. If you're a teacher out there already, go for a new methodology, modeling in the classroom, flipping your classroom, try that close read. Join AACT. I highly recommend AACT. Bottom line to all of you, and especially to the undergraduates right now, invest in yourself. Investing in yourself is going to enable you to offer so much more to your students if you become a teacher, or to any profession that you end up in. I really want to end with one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou, and I am going to read it even though I know you can too, that you are the sum total of everything you've ever seen, heard, eaten, smelled, been told, forgot. It's all there. Everything influences each of us. Remember, it's not a class. It's an experience. That's what you want to offer as a teacher. And I hope that today I've shown you a little bit of how to do that, how to get there, how to maintain it, and maybe some inspiration on how to go there. I really want to thank you for listening. And really quickly, a few acknowledgments I feel I have to do. Thermo Fisher and the ACS for the amazing recognition. Here I am in Northern California, and I can't believe I was selected for a national award. Dr. Eileen Natali, Randy Miller, Eric Wassinger, they were instrumental in nominating me for the award. The Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at CSU Chico, their support is endless. Dr. Kelly, my mentor at UC Santa Barbara, he's now at Penn State. Gail Morgan is the library teacher at our school, and she's the one who always lets me bounce ideas for my presentations off of. The science department at Chico High, and my students, past, present, and future. And I really want to thank all of you for listening.
Okay, we want to thank you.
Answer any questions.
Okay, we want to thank you very much. And we're going to entertain questions. Remember, raise your hand, say your name, and then, right here. Okay. All right.
Hi, my name is Emily. I'm wondering, why did you decide to get a second master's instead of doing a PhD?
Mainly because to do my PhD, because I did entertain it actually, but to do my PhD, I would have to quit my job completely. There's no PhD institution like right in Chico. And I thought PhD, I was thinking more of doing a chemistry PhD actually, going back for that. When I went on my sabbatical leave and I got my master's degree, part of being able to go on sabbatical, I had to agree that I would come back to my school and teach. So I was sort of restricted in terms of freedom there to just say, okay, I'm done. So I didn't actually quit my job. I still actually was being paid by the school district on a sabbatical leave. They paid me at the lowest salary level, but it enabled me to go to school full time, which was really awesome. So that's really why. There are a lot of logistics. And really, I've thought about leaving the classroom on several times. I just really like high school. I'm really happy where I am. And if I did a PhD, I know that would create movement into a higher institution of learning, which might be good too. But for me, this is where I belong.
Hi, my name is Adrian, and I was just wondering, well, I guess your running theme for this whole thing was it's not a class, it's an experience. I was wondering if you have seen a different level of engagement in your students because you implemented that and tried to think outside of the box, like poster sessions and other ways to engage them.
I definitely have. it's kind of interesting to think about engagement. When I was really young, I think like my first teaching, I really engaged the students, and I think partly they connected to me just because I was young and I was so different from anyone they'd ever seen. They'd never had a physical science teacher, so anyone doing physics or chem, physical science, that actually majored in those areas. They were all math people, or they were biology majors who were just doing the chemistry and the physics. But then as I've gotten older, I really have gotten better through the experiences. I never in the past had kids in at lunch the way I do now. I mean, I have students, they're just in all the time. And I think it is because they're more connected with what's going on. I have some Sunday afternoons where I'll come to school for a couple of hours to offer like a study session or just a drop-in work time. And I'm amazed at how many students will take advantage of that. I think coupled with that, though, students are more sophisticated today, and they know about taking advantage of opportunities. And ones that want to go to college, they know it's really hard to get in. So they're working hard to be a really good student. So it's a lot of different factors at play, but I hope my change to experience is a piece of it.
Cool.
Hi, Dylan Zimmerman. While I'm still an undergrad, I have had an experience to be able to teach for actually a good portion of a semester. And I'm
great.
curious that being in that place, I remember like every single day was just a packed day. So I'm curious, you're talking about these summer researches and these conferences and these projects and publications. What were some strategies you used to achieve balance with the never-ending pile of homework and committee meetings that are endemic to the high school setting?
Yeah. That's an excellent question, because I know teachers who have left the profession actually because of the weight of the homework and papers, et cetera. So I've been able to tackle it in a couple of ways. So if I just think about the paper load, at my school, we are able to have student assistants. And so I have student assistants who help me with some of that grading. The other thing, when I feel bogged down, I have implemented doing more peer grading. And at first I thought, oh my God, this is not the way to go. But you have to get out of the paper bundle, because you're exactly right. It takes time to be creative. And so you have to buy yourself some time. So I try to be selective about what they do, but I might pick a certain lab where we'll trade papers and grade labs right there in class. And so then you're turning that grading into also a learning experience. The other thing I do with just like regular book homework, I make answer keys available. So everyone should be able to check all of their work. So when they hand it in to me, I'm going to do a quick scan for completion. And then I pick out certain problems that are key to make sure that they've done them correctly, that they're actually doing their own corrections. So I try to put as much of the weight of doing and correcting on the student as I can. Summers are definitely times when I don't want to teach summer school. I want to create curriculum. I want to experience like a research or someplace in a new campus, something like that. But that's really, summertime for me is crucial for setting up what I'm going to do the next year. And it does come in time. So that's why I say, that first 5 years, my first year, I mean, you give an exam one day, and you've experienced this. You give an exam one day, so you've got 150 exams to grade, and then the next day you got to have something for them to do to get started again. So I have like folders from my first year. I would just write myself notes. Jenelle, this didn't go very well. Change it in the summer, and I throw the note in the folder, and then I just move on, and then I really use summers for most of that looking back time. My personal schedule now, though, I do try to exercise daily. I think that helps too. So I get up early in the morning. I do a really short, just a 3-mile slow jog with my 2 dogs, and then hit the day. So you're right. It's a challenge, but that's kind of some of the strategy that I use. Let the students help you with the grading. And don't forget to take time to exercise and keep yourself healthy, because I think that also helps your mental attitude, that then you can tackle it.
Hi, my name is Allie. What is the best thing that you've gotten out of teaching in your career?
Wow. There are two best things, I guess, but the number one best thing is I've had the experience, because I've been doing it long enough now, that I've seen kids like, Dr. Eric Wassinger. I've seen them in high school. I've seen them struggle and be teenagers. And I've seen them go away and grow and become whatever. I mean, for him, it was a professor of chemistry, which for me was, kind of special to my heart, because that's my discipline. But I've met past students, again, who have gone on and become business people, just done all these different things. And to me, that's really the best thing about it, is just seeing people grow up and grow into themselves. That's, I can't tell someone, become a chemist. Of course I say, I want you to become a chemist, but they may not take it up. And that's so cool to see the different things that people become. The other thing is that they grow up in ways of thinking and also in behavior. I have so many kids one's a lawyer, and he came back and said, "Oh, Miss Ball, I can't believe you ever put up with me. I was just such a stinker in the classroom." And I'm like, I don't remember you being that way at all. You were a typical kid, lots of energy and very vocal, and it's all good. So I really like that aspect of watching them grow and feeling like you're a little part of what pushes them on their way.
Hi. Can't see me yet, but hi. I'm Sarah, and I was just wondering, how do you deal with the students who just don't have the desire to learn, or the students who maybe don't have an interest in chemistry that are in your class?
Yeah. How you deal with that in part depends upon the particular student and his or her personality and what kind of relationship you build with them. I can specifically recall one boy who, he really did not like my class. And it was very obvious, but it was also obvious that he was certainly bright and capable enough to do it. So what I did is I sent out a call slip, and I had him come to my room during my prep period when no one else was there. And we talked about it, and I kind of called him out on it. And I said, I look at what you're doing, and what you're doing is so far below your capabilities. Why? What's going on? And he was really honest with me, and he just said, I just don't find this stuff interesting. I don't like doing this math business with it. So we talked about, well, what are the parts that you do sort of like? And he did like working in the lab. He thought that was fun, color changes and precipitates and doing titration things. I mean, so he liked manipulating equipment and doing that, but he really didn't like much else. So finally, though, in our conversation, I asked him, I said, well, what do you think you're going to do beyond high school? Well, he wanted to go to college, and he wanted to become a computer programmer. And so it may seem shocking that he didn't find any buy-in into the chem, but he was really focused on just computer. And so finally we talked, and I basically said, well, if you do well in chemistry, that's going to open up doors for you to go someplace where you can just focus on that computer science. And I know it sounds really simplistic, but it was eye-opening to him to go, wow, there is a purpose for putting my energy and effort into the class. Now, the other, student that you have who really is disengaged, there can be a lot of different reasons for that. And again, conversation with them individually, I think, is super important. But the bottom line that I have found that helps the most is you just have to not give up on them, no matter what, no matter how grouchy they might be one day to you. High school students really don't hold grudges. So you have one bad day with them, the next day might be super. And if they're not doing well, then you just mandate you're going to come in and you're going to spend some time at lunch, and I'm going to be with you one-on-one. So when I've invested in them, they have responded. And then just in general for all kids, that engagement piece is have something to do. Be prepared as a teacher. I think that all kids do not like it when they come into a class and it's like, well, we'll take 10 minutes to get started and maybe we'll do this today, or you will chit chat. I think kids want to have a purpose when they come into class. So I think it's important to be just planned and have that lesson plan and move forward. And have faith that they can do it. If you have faith in them and you communicate to them, that helps a lot. I'm not perfect with every student, that's for sure. I'm not perfect with every student. But you have to try because every student's worth it.
Hello, my name is Alistair, and I was wondering if you had any pointers for tutors, because there's a lot of tutors in the room or to-be tutors. Is there any pointers that you have to make a tutoring environment better or help the student learn better?
Well, tutoring I think is really hard, especially for you because you're so busy. But it is helpful if the tutor knows like in advance what is happening in class. So a lot of times the college students that might tutor some of my students, they'll contact me and ask me, how can I access your course outline? Is there any materials that you could give me for a particular unit or any hints? So emailing the teacher, some contact with the teacher and knowing the class that they're taking is really helpful. The other thing when you're tutoring is to be really careful to not just do a homework assignment with the student. So as you're going through, and yeah, you're smiling because that's what they want, huh? So as you're going through, if getting the homework done is valuable for them. But as you look at the problem sets, if there's a problem and they get, that's one they struggle on, right away, just make them do another problem. A lot of, if you're in, I'm trying to think like in a general chemistry book, a lot of times the problems will be sort of like parallel. So they'll have an even problem and an odd problem that's basically asking you to do the same type of thing. So, pick the one that wasn't assigned and have them do that right after. And then have them talk it out loud too. If they can explain like the process they're going through, why they're doing things, I think that also helps them. So, try to give them double up on those particular things that are difficult for them. And don't be afraid to just feel like if it's an overall topic, give them a little mini lecture. Because sometimes student language to students, you might say the exact same words that I said as their teacher, but they hear it differently from you. And so I think, don't be afraid to do that too. To have a little bit of like control over what's happening. But mostly don't just do that, the assignment for them.
Okay, we have one last question. Joanna?
Hi, I'm Joanna. I thought it was really cool how you were talking about how your class is ACS sponsored. So the Chemical Society sponsors your class to do different things. And I'm just wondering like what the connections are or what you have to do to become ACS sponsored.
Well, in that phrasing of the ACS sponsor, the California section, the local section, they don't like sponsor my classroom only, but what they have done is they are really active in offering educational experiences for students, like at that ACS meeting, having something just for high school students. They also will sometimes have things just for middle school students. And so because I belong to the section, I hear about those things and I really try to take my students. The other thing that they do, though, that I would say is a huge sponsorship is they offer small grants that high school teachers can apply for. And I have gotten almost every year, like $500, $400. One year I got a $1,000 grant funded. And so through that, I've been able to begin to purchase probeware and other equipment that I wouldn't have. So the way to get connected is to stay a member of ACS and join your local section. I know in the end it's money out of your pocket when you do those things, but in the beginning of your profession, you can really establish some great things, like the money and the activities that I participated in.
Okay, we want to thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank all of you for listening.
Very, very informative, very inspirational.
I hope so.
How wet are you out there?
Oh, you know what? It's not too bad right now. I'm looking out my window and it's cloudy. It was raining this morning, but I'm seeing patches of blue sky. So
very nice. Do you think the drought's going to be ended with what you got there?
Yeah. Well, hopefully the drought will at least get dampened a little bit this winter, but it's looking good, looking better so far. Yeah. Excellent. But no big floods where I am, so I'm lucky.
Very good. Very good. Again, thank you so much. We're grateful, and have a great the rest of the day.
You too. Thank you.
Hold on. You got one more question.
Yes. I actually wanted to ask the question. No one would be held back. This is more of a personal, well, not personal, but a question that's kind of selfish, but
that's okay. Yeah.
I'm the chemistry club president, and I'm trying to find activities or demonstrations that would make chemistry more interesting for those that don't see it as that.
So what age?
College students. For
college students. Okay.
Yeah. It's a little bit, but I feel like even high school students are close enough in age that it'd be pretty similar. The things that they find interesting may be very close to what we do as well.
Right. I could probably pull together some things that I could email to you. The other thing I would say is, as you're looking at, like, if you just go online and you search for chemistry demonstrations, a lot of the things that I know that the chemistry club at Chico State has done for my students really like, because they're going to be things that change color, that are kind of big. They always like anything, with flashes of light and that kind of stuff. But a lot of it, I think, is just whatever you do to do that demonstration, and then to make sure that you talk about what's going on. So, like, what is your, what is the chemical reaction, for example? And then the other thing that I find is, what they really like is just being able to do things that they want to do it. Like, even, making slime. Have you guys done simple things like that?
No.
Okay.
It's still, it's something that we haven't really done before because of many different reasons. One of the bigger is just that we don't really normally do it, but I want to start doing it. And I'd like to start with something that they won't feel like is at a level below them, which I don't feel like
well, then,
we've never tried before. So,
like, if you want to do something at a really higher level, you could look for oscillating clock or oscillating reactions demonstration. And there are several different ones that I'm sure probably, if you Google something like that, and they're not so trivial in terms of the reactions that are going on. So you might want to start with something like that, because they're super cool to watch. They're really cool to watch. And I think anyone, everyone loves when things change color, but then this idea of something that's going back and forth, how do you explain that? They're not all just simple equilibrium shifts, not all of them. So that might be a place to start, with something to pique some interest. That's just like kind of the first thing that comes to my mind when if I think about, something of that for older students.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that helps. I wish I knew like one particular online source where I would say, oh, go here. They're spread out all over. The only other thing I would say is make sure that whatever you decide to do, that you really go overboard with your safety and that you practice the demo without an audience first. You don't want to do it alone. You want someone with you. But because some of them, you read about them and they sound like really, really neat, but they are somewhat hazardous, so you want to be careful.
Right.
But I'd be happy, I'll see what I could pull together and send to.
Can I email you and then I'll just indicate that I talked to you today? Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. Yeah, I think that doing something like that you'll find is a lot of fun. Demonstrations are work to put together, but I think you get some really neat things out of them. For example, one of the demos that my students, they love, they wish I would just do it all period, is we make methane bubbles and we burn them. And that's a really simple demonstration because you just attach some tubing to your gas jet outlet and you put a funnel on the end of it. And then you make a bubble solution. And I could send you, how to do the bubble solution. Anyway, you put the funnel in the bubble solution, you turn on the gas and you'll make bubbles and the bubbles come off of the funnel. And so they're suspended in the air and then you ignite them with a candle that you have at the end of a meter stick because you don't want to be close. So I usually have a student, help me with that. And so it's a simple combustion reaction. So that's a really simple reaction, but it's really neat to look at it, them reacting in the air. Because my students especially aren't used to this idea that you have gases that still could be reacting around you. So, but do send me an email. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. I will be sure to email you.
Okay.